Hey guys, my name is Zach. Welcome to another video for the channel. Today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that I have for people that want to get into 3D printing. It's a fantastic hobby. It is a hobby that um, I think that really benefits us as collectors. There's so many cool things that you can print, and I think being able to print it yourself in the long run, I think it can save some money and can even make some money. But those will both relate to some things that we'll talk about in this video. So my first bit of advice for you as a new 3D printer is to understand your printer, the parts that go into it, what each of the parts is, what each of the parts does. And I think this serves multiple purposes. First and foremost, if you need to order a part, being able to order that specific part is helpful and it can save you some money. I think as well, when you have problems, I think people in like the Reddit and the groups, I think they're more willing to help if you have a general base knowledge of what part of your printer is malfunctioning, as well as if you're able to describe accurately the symptoms that you're having. And I think that all goes with trying to be as good of a hobbyist as you can, right? Understanding the moving parts that are in the printer. Obviously, plastic printers have way more moving parts than resin printers, but I think being able to understand both sets of printers that you own, or I guess whatever you own, and what those parts are and what they do, I think is very helpful. And I think for me, there are times even now that I have to look things up in the owner's manual, go through the different diagrams. Even just recently, when I had an issue with one of my printers and it broke, learned a lot about it and was able to replace a bunch of parts. I still don't have it working 100%, but I'm able to order exactly the parts that I need, and I'm able to save a little bit of money versus having to order entire full assemblies of things. So, my first piece of advice is to understand the parts of your printer, what they do, and how to take it apart and put it back together. I think it's very important. And it's really not that difficult. There's, to get into the printer and to get into the hot end, I think you're talking like 4 or 5 screws. It's not rocket science. And I think it goes a long way towards your enjoyment of the hobby as well. The next thing that I would advise is to understand how to level your printer and how to maintain it. Both in plastic and in resin printers, these do, maybe in resin a little less often, but they do require you to level the printer. And in both ways that you level it, often you'll use a sheet of paper. I've seen some people even make like fancy like circuit boards you can place under the hot end to create conductivity. You really don't need that. Just get a piece of paper. There are some great leveling programs for plastic printers. I like the CHEP, CHEP. If you look up his videos, he does a wonderful calibration. You can also just do it manually, but I think understanding how to level your printer, even if you do have a printer that has an auto bed leveler, I think understanding what is being adjusted, I think goes a long way towards being able to get successful quality prints. With resin, it is pretty easy as well. Same thing. It's really just about loosening some bolts and using a piece of paper, getting it nice and snug, tightening everything down in the proper order. The instruction manual goes over all that. Doing it on plastic's a little bit more time involved. You do need to adjust these little, what you see on the screen here, these large cogs to get everything level. And but it is very easy. It takes just a few minutes to learn. And I would say, out of all the problems I see new printers have, having a build plate that is not level for both plastic and resin is, I would say, probably like 60% of the problems. I think another 30% is probably not understanding how to support a model, which I think is a little bit more advanced for this video, but um, really a lot of problems can be solved by just leveling your build plate. And in fact, that was some of the problems that I had initially. When I first started resin printing, my build plate was just a tiny bit off, and just that tiny little bit off, I kept having failures on one side of the bed, and I thought my screen was bad. I started going down this huge rabbit hole. It was a quick 5-minute fix to get it level, and I've been printing uh, plenty of things with that same screen. So leveling your bed, very, very important. Up next, I think it's to print things that are exciting. There was a comment on a YouTube video that really changed the way I think about 3D printing. And the comment was, if you wouldn't spend $1 for it at the dollar store, you probably shouldn't print it. And the example I'm going to share with you, last year, I got really into going to the gym. Obviously, I haven't been going that much this year, as you can tell. But I had wanted in the showers of the gym, they have like this little cubby, and I wanted to print like a fancy soap holder that was self-draining, that I could, kind of take with me to the gym, so you're not resting the soap on that nasty little shelf in the shower. And I remember the print, it was like, it wasn't this was not the print, but it was a little bit more intricate than this. And I remember like just being so annoyed that I couldn't get the sort of the faux bottom layer to print properly, and it was a huge pain in the ass, and I was wasting so much time on this. And when I saw this comment, it's like, yeah, I could just go to Walmart and buy a soap thing for like $1, and my problems would be solved. Not everything in life problems that you have need to be solved by 3D printing. There are some wonderful solutions to very niche problems that can be solved by 3D printing, and I think that's really, to me, is the most exciting part of 3D printing. One example, I don't know if you can see it here. So this is a Steam Deck. They're about $150, and let me bring you up here. Mine was black, and with my new desk setup, a lot of it is going to be white, and so I printed an enclosure for the Steam Deck that is white, and that way I don't need to, I guess don't have to, I guess I really don't have to either way, but it'll just match everything a little bit better, and that's not something you can really just go to the dollar store and buy. Another cool thing that I'm printing, this is not my work here, this is someone else's, it's the same file though, but it's the King of the Lions boat from the Wind Waker. And this is something that there are some really expensive statues out there, but for I think like $15, I was able to print this with the filament that I needed. And this is certainly an exciting use of my time. And I think in terms of time that I spent trying to get that stupid soap dish right was about a third of the time it took me to get this print right and printed. So again, just because you can print it doesn't mean you should print it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't print things that you want, but if you're stressing over something that you can just go to the store and buy, maybe that's not the best use of your 3D printer. But again, I have solved plenty of problems, saved myself tons of money by printing things that I can just buy. But again, if it's causing you stress, just go and buy it. It's not worth trying to get it right to win a moral victory over the printer. Another piece of advice is to find a friend. I have some wonderful friends that I've met in 3D printing, and I think there are times, obviously, if you have problems, you can go to these larger groups and reach out, but there are times where you might not want to make a whole post, or maybe you're having a stupid issue that you just want to confide in a friend. And I think being able to have a friend that also prints, for example, there's a Mike in our Patreon chat. He's a printer as well. I was having some problems with one of these actually. It's the Super Destroyer from Helldivers, and I printed it in resin, but I want to print it in plastic. And Mike is a really, really amazing plastic printer, and I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to get the plastic version of this supported. And when Mike and I started looking into it, I noticed that the sample print on this website was printed in a different orientation than I had it. That's something that I probably would not have figured out without Mike's assistance, and just other things like that with other printer friends of mine. There's been random situations where I have a supposed known good file that I can't get to print correctly. I can send it to a friend. If they have those same issues, then it's likely not my printer or my settings. So having a friend that you can kind of phone in a favor is really helpful. And yeah, there's wonderful people in this hobby. I've seen complete strangers willing to do like the most crazy hours long tech support for other complete strangers. So, yeah, this hobby is really wonderful, and there's some really great people in this hobby. So, find a friend. I think it's really helpful. And last but not least, this is an interesting one. I think a lot of people think that printer equals money, and having a printer means you should start a business. And I think that you should, if if you understand a lot of the things about printing and the pros and cons of having a 3D printing business. Um, I have one. I'm not paying my kids' college fund with this 3D printing. On a good month, I will make maybe $100 profit. On a normal month, I'm like breaking even or just like a little bit of profit because there's a lot of printers, and price competition is significant and shipping is expensive. But more than that, I think there's this idea, probably about a third of the people that come to me for help for 3D printing, they even before they have their first print done, right? They have their printer, they've built it, they're already taking like commissions for things, to print for people. And I think it's one of those things that definitely don't rush into starting a 3D printing business. It can be very stressful when you can't get a print to work or when you're running behind. It is kind of stressful, especially if you're a new printer. If you're a new printer and you're already trying to sell prints to your buddies, I would definitely take it slow. Make sure your printer's built correctly. Make sure that you understand how to use the printer. You know, maybe test the waters with more difficult prints, because usually when people want you to print stuff, they're really wanting you to print things that no one else has, right? One of my first commissions was a Darth Vader burnt mask. I want to say that was probably one of my first commissions, and I underpriced that so badly, and I sold a lot of them. I made almost no money off of it, but yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't really fully understand the amount of work and time that it would take to do that, and I did sell myself short. I think if I had more experience printing projects like that, I could have priced it better, you know. But again, that's beside the point. I think when you get a printer, enjoy it for what it is, become immersed in the hobby, learn as much as you can, and then I think you start the business. I don't think you go straight into soliciting prints. There's nothing wrong with that, but when there's been some people that I've recommended not to do it, and then they did it, they really didn't like the hobby, because it's not really like you just press a button and it's good to go. There is like some learning involved, and they were very stressed that they weren't going to be able to fulfill their commission. So I would definitely not rush to start a business. Definitely, I think it can make you money, but take it slow, enjoy the hobby, enjoy your printer, learn about your printer, and when the time is right, definitely make that next step. But as a beginner, I think a lot of your time should be spent on printing things that you've wanted, um, trying challenging prints. I remember one of the first challenging prints that I did. It was the Emperor of Mankind, and I was so happy with myself that I got that print to print. It took like a week of trial and error, but it was so rewarding, and I did it just for myself. And I can't imagine being under the stress of either someone having paid you or someone willing to pay you for that project and failing that many times, and the stress that would go with that. So, again, to summarize, we have understanding the parts of your printer, understanding how to level and maintain your printer, print things that are exciting to you, find a friend in the hobby, and don't rush to make it a business. If you're wanting to get into 3D printing, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear some of the things that you would like to print. If you are printing and you're in the 3D printing hobby, let me know what you think of these 5 tips for new printers. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. And again, I would reiterate, I have been printing for a few years. I don't consider myself an expert by any means. I print resin and plastic, and I really love it. But every day I'm learning something new. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you are getting to printing, best of luck, and we'll catch you on the next episode.